There we go. Welcome to the second episode of the Queer Geek Cast in season 1.2, because this used to be a podcast, now it's a webcast, so it's kind of season 1, but not really. So we're going to discuss a different LGBTQ plus related topic every week related to geek culture. I'm Angel. I'm the admin of the parent website, the Geekiary, and today's topic is LGBTQ plus representation, quality versus quantity. So I want to introduce my two guests here today. Stacy, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Stacy, aka StickyKeys.
And I'm Farid, and I'm an editor and admin assistant at the Geekiary. I cover queer stuff across several types of media, and I'm also author of numerous books with queer leads. And Stacy, we need to learn more about you.
I know. Oh my goodness. So I am a contributor over at the Geekiary. Once every 6 months, I produce an article that either divides the masses or is ignored completely. So either way, I'm loving it. I run BHAD podcast and started as kind of a Teen Wolf podcast, and we definitely pay attention to LGBTQ issues as well as diversity issues and female issues on the show. We're kind of in the process of opening that up to other shows, so we'll kind of see how that expands.
Look forward to that. So before we continue, I have a very helpful disclaimer, because sometimes we can get feisty and very opinionated. So views expressed on the Queer Geek Cast are those of myself as a host and these guests, and do not necessarily reflect on the Geekiary as a whole. We will probably rely heavily on that today when we get a little kinky about things. We do try to keep this webcast PG, but I have a tendency to curse a lot, so I'll probably be the first one to break that rule and veer us into profanity territory. So brace yourself for that. Now, the thing that inspired today's webcast topic was the GLAAD representation study, the Where We Are on TV study. That came out just a little less than a week ago. And on the surface, it looks very good. We are at 10.2% overall of LGBTQ plus representation across network, cable, and streaming television, which I believe the last time they did it, it was like 8.8. So that's a pretty big jump. Their goal was to get it to 10% before next year. So we're a year ahead and 0.2 over. So on the surface, that looks very good. But we have some quality versus quantity issues that we want to dig into. And Farid, I believe that you kind of broke down a lot of those statistics a little more thoroughly, right?
Yes, I'm loving it.
I read it all. I read that report because I have been keeping up with queer representation from the beginning of 2019 to November 2019, and I have watched so many shows that are so bad. Like, I'll check them out because they are like promoting themselves as queer exclusive, and I check them and I'm like, oh, this is bad. This needs to be canceled. This ain't helping no one. Yeah. So I was reading the report, and I'm going to like quickly break it down for all of you. The report is called, as Angel said, Where We Are on TV, and it covers 2019 to 2020, more specifically June 1st of 2019 to May 31st of 2020. Now, out of the 879 regular characters scheduled to appear on broadcast scripted primetime television this season, only 90 of them are LGBTQ, so that's only 10%. And I mean, some people are still screaming that queerness is being shoved down their throats, which, I mean, it's only 10%. But yeah. And also, the biggest contributor is streaming, and streaming has 109 LGBTQ plus characters as regulars, compared to cable, where and when it comes to cable, there are like 121 overall queer characters, not basically regulars. And then out of the 488 regular and recurring queer characters on scripted broadcast, cable, and streaming programming, only 128 of them are bisexual plus, which includes basically all the entire queer umbrella. It can be asexual, pansexual, and all. And this group is made out of 90 women, 3 of whom are trans, 36 men, 5 of whom are trans, and 2 non-binary people. Now, while gay characters do seem to be gay characters do outnumber the lesbian characters, the bisexual representation as a whole continues to lack.
Farid, did you get any numbers in terms of if there are 128 LGBTQ characters, how many different shows are they being represented in? Do you know what I mean? Because Pose has their entire lead cast is LGBT.
Yeah, the report doesn't break down
That'd be
every
interesting
show.
to look at. Yeah,
It would be
We can
very
link to
interesting
the report
to look
though,
at.
because we'll link to the report in the notes
Yeah,
for this.
you guys
because
can
it's
read
very
it.
thorough.
yes. I'm kind of scrolling through it now, and it's
And they
very
also break
interesting.
it down according to race.
Mhm.
It's good. But yeah,
They
also
even touch on like disability and stuff too. Like they get
they do a lot.
deep in the weeds of
It's a
representation.
very interesting report. If you guys are interested in queer representation, I implore that you guys go ahead and read that report. And also, bisexual rep seems to lack for men for some reason, which is an issue for me. It's as if they're saying that women can be bisexual and it's okay, but men can either be gay or that's it. Like you can't have bisexual men on TV for some reason. Yeah, I'm not really. Yeah,
It's because it's such an interesting dichotomy because first you said, okay, we want more gay characters, and then we kind of got the Will and Jack of it all. And Jack was, then we got the thing of, well, you can be a masculine gay guy, which I'm like, that wasn't an oxymoron to begin with, but okay. Like, I understand where you're going. But something about bisexuality, the idea of the inhabitation of both, I feel that there are a lot of men out there that forget that they are half woman. And I think that when you come to bisexuality, it really, for some reason, in people's minds, it really showcases this thing of, oh, here's someone that can kind of inhabit both of these lifestyles, both of these things. And people do not like that. And it's very interesting to watch, but I'm like, it's part misogyny, part homophobia, and part biphobia, of course, and then just like part weird. I'm just like, what? Why is this strange? Yeah, it's very interesting.
And when it comes to bisexuality, I also noticed that when it comes to women, it's assumed, oh, see, she's bisexual. She's just playing around with women, but she really likes guys. And then when it comes to bisexual men, the few and far between that there are, it's, oh, they're actually gay and just don't want to come out yet. It's always them liking the men. That's always the default when it comes to bisexuals. It's like they secretly like men. But
yeah, because you never hear, oh, he's bi. Oh no, he's just really straight. He's just playing around. It's like, what? Again, it's the idea of bisexuality being a gateway instead of just like its own thing.
So in general, what makes good representation and what makes bad representation? And we're going to go through a lot of actual individual examples. But for me, a lot of the time when I am critical of a certain aspect of representation, it's because they fall into certain tropes. The one for me that gets to me is the barrier gaze trope, which I'm going to read the definition off of the TV Tropes website. The barrier gaze trope in media, including all of its variants, is a homophobic cliche. It represents it is the presentation of deaths of LGBTQ characters where these characters are nominally able to be viewed as more expendable than their heteronormative counterparts. In this way, the death is treated as exceptional in its circumstances. In aggregate, queer characters are more likely to die than straight characters, and maybe because they seem to have less purpose compared to straight characters. Or that the supposed natural conclusion of their story is an early death. That's the one that, as we go through our list, I'm going to be like, that one was buried. That one was also buried. That one also died. This was specifically really bad in 2015 to 2017, particularly when it came to queer women, both lesbian and bisexual women. They just kept dying like every single week, like the first few weeks of one season.
Oh, the 100 and yeah.
And we'll get to some of those as well. The deviant of that trope is called another dead lesbian, but really it also includes bisexual women. That's my major pet peeve. And then there's gangst, which is gay angst. Linking homosexuality and unhappiness / depression / suicide can imply that being gay causes all those bad consequences, rather than the reactions of the people being the cause. Correlation does not equal causation.
Yeah, that's a very. Oh, do you mind?
No, go ahead.
That's a very interesting one. That's a big thing right now, especially as we're getting away from, it's such a weird time. We kind of went, the Stonewall gays, the Will and Grace gays, and now we're in this kind of new thing where, you have these young gay kids that really just don't know a lot about gay history, and they are wanting a different representation, which completely matters. But then at the same time, it's like, how do we still pay homage to, what the people before us had to go through, and the angst that they still had to go through? And really, in a lot of our square states and flyover states, they still contend with to this day. How do you show both sides of that story? So yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because
Gangst.
Yep.
It's an issue. And another one, I just have two more tropes to kind of start us out, because these are the ones that bother me personally. This one specifically is about bisexual representation, which we were talking about earlier. It's called the anything that moves trope. When applied to bisexuals, this presumes that because they are interested in some members of both sexes, they're interested in all members of both sexes. Although bisexual is not equivalent to promiscuous.
Promiscuity, yeah.
And then the last one that I have listed, though by all means this is not the last trope, there's a lot of them. Check them out on TV tropes. I didn't want to go through the entire list. There's like 40 of them. But this one is one that
queer representation.
This one's called Discount Lesbians. So discount lesbians. Humanoid lesbian characters get an extra layer of othering by making them also alien, immortal, cybernetic, or otherwise not quite human. While this can be a useful trick for getting crap past the radar, it also suggests being lesbian means being very unlike the normal folk in the audience and not in the middle. The episode I just recorded, we kind of talked about this as well, because they do this with asexual characters too. We had 4 canon asexual characters, and 2 of them were not human.
Data.
Asexuality, there's so few representation, we have to borrow tropes from other sexualities to explain it. So discount lesbians also applies to ace characters.
That's amazing. That is something I knew, but I hadn't considered. I will say, in Teen Wolf fandom, we do this a lot with Derek. We're like, werewolf culture is obviously more fluid and open, so that kind of thing. And it's like I could see it working on both sides of the board, but I can also see we're like, okay, you guys, come on, like let's get back to earth. Let's just get some regular people. Can I add a trope?
Yeah, go for it.
Are we doing that? Okay, so because I definitely want to talk more about those, but I don't even know if it's a trope it's more just an observation, but it's something that really affects not only homosexuality, but all diversity. And that is one to rule them all. Meaning, if I have one gay person, they are all gay people. Every decision they make, every experience they go through, they have to burden themselves with the entirety of gay history on their shoulders. And otherwise, it's just like, it's so much pressure to put on one character. And I think that's what leads to barrier gays and what leads to gangst and that kind of thing. It's like, well, this character is gay, he has to go through the struggle, and then he has to have been attracted to girls too, and he has to be this, has to be that. So yeah.
And that issue wouldn't be a problem if we had more representation.
Exactly.
Another part of the GLAAD study is that approximately 20% of people, I think it was 18 to 35, so not the whole population, but specifically like millennial into Gen Z kind of thing, 20% identify as LGBTQ+, which is huge, because before it was like 5%. So, if 20% of the characters reflected that, we wouldn't have the one character that has to represent everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's only 20% who identify. I mean, what was the sample size that the GLAAD report took in?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but that is a good question. And also it's 20% of just that specific age bracket too. And actually the GLAAD has set up a new goal that 20% of all characters by I think 2025 or 2023 or something. I forget the exact date. But like a few years in the future, they want 20% to represent.
All of them aliens?
All of them discount lesbians.
One show and everyone dies at the end. That's the interesting thing, because Farid mentioned it earlier, the onslaught of it's being shoved in our faces. And I'm like, it's not being shoved in your faces, it's being normalized.
Yeah.
Because if you think about the numbers, I remember when I was growing up, the number was 10%. One out of every 10 person you encounter is going, and even then it was just gay. It wasn't even the spectrum. And so I'm like, I think right now we're up to it's close to 20. It's like between 15 and 20%. And however, on the flip side, you also have these studies coming out where kids, specifically since the end of 2016, I wonder what could have made this happen, but are starting to say, okay, yeah, I don't necessarily mind gay people, but I wouldn't, ever come out, or I don't think I would be friends with someone who's gay. And like this rise and that kind of thing. And so then you're like, well, why do we need representation? Because we have this rise and these opinions. People can't understand what they don't experience.
On Stacy's point, like, it's so weird. Like, even the parents, they're like, I'm okay if the neighbor is gay.
Right.
But if my son can't be queer, that's not possible.
Like that's cool for you.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So now taking all that into account, let's start tackling some characters. We've kind of broken them up by where they're broadcast, because that's what the GLAAD report did. Let's start with broadcast television, which I don't watch a lot of it anymore. But Farid, I think you're pretty caught up on a lot of broadcast television. So
yeah, we watch it. Warner Bros. Sends us free stuff for the Blu-rays for everything.
Nice.
But yeah, okay, so starting with CW, the most problematic of channels on broadcast TV.
Yes, we kind of dissed him on our last episode too. Oh no.
But according to the GLAAD report, CW, when it comes to broadcast television, has the most number of queer characters on one channel. But it's also some of the most problematic representation you can find.
I got Riverdale. One word, Riverdale.
So kudos to CW for greenlighting Batwoman. I'm watching it. One of our editors and writers, Sky, is reviewing this show. As far as the queer representation goes, it's great compared to the CW standard. It's not the best, but it's okay. And then we have Black Lightning, and the queer character is Anissa or Thunder, and there's also Grace. It's good as well. Then we have Kelly on Supergirl, good. Then we have DC Legends of Tomorrow, where there's Constantine, Sarah, and Ava. So that's like 3 characters in the same TV show that are queer. And recently, DC Legends of Tomorrow had an entire little mini story where John Constantine and his love for his boyfriend ended up saving the entire universe.
Oh.
So that was good. Then we come to Riverdale. And I mean...
Which was a fun time to be a comment moderator on our website. Oh my God.
I did recaps briefly for Riverdale, and it was the first season where it was just 12 episodes, and I was like, this show is absolute trash. I would keep watching it because it is insane, but I went through Teen Wolf. I don't need Riverdale. It's like, I don't need that stress in my life.
This program are those of us as individuals.
I can't.
But yeah, so there's only one queer, openly gay character when this show started out, and that was Kevin. He's gay in the comics as well. So over the course of the 4 seasons, Kevin has been in the closet. Kevin has been targeted by a serial killer. Kevin has been a part of a cult. Kevin has had his kidney removed.
Yep. Didn't he go through conversion? Did he go through conversion or was that something else?
Oh no, that was Cheryl.
Okay. Oh my God. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so that's Kevin. And then coming to the lesbians and a bisexual character. So Cheryl is actually is a lesbian, while Tony is bisexual. However, Cheryl is apparently in love with her twin brother as well. So there's this incestuous vibe.
Oh no, there's a
going
corpse. It's wild.
on. Yeah, and in
This is
season
getting
4,
kind of Games of Thrones here.
Yes.
in season 4, she actually has her twin brother's preserved corpse inside her house, while her girlfriend is living in the same house as her.
Now, was she dating Josie or does she have a new girlfriend?
Oh, she's dating Tony.
Oh, Tony. That's right. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Tony is bisexual, and Cheryl, as Stacy said, that when we have a queer character, she or he needs to go through everything. So Cheryl's the one who went through conversion therapy.
Wow.
Because every queer individual has the same experience.
Well, and this is what bothers me because I know they're coming from a good place. They're like, we want to bring light to this issue. But the problem is, I'm like, the way that you attack this is by having better representation, not just showing what's out there. Like, you have the option to show how it should be and not necessarily the way that it is, especially with such little representation as there is.
Oh, this TV show is trash. So I can't really be angry at it because overall it's trash. So every character has gone through stupid stuff.
Mm-hmm.
CW and specifically, my cat is making noise. Hold on, shush, cat, shush. Okay, sorry, animals and live broadcast, super fun.
Gotta love it.
But CW is a bit messy, and that goes back through history. Lexon the 100 is part of the thing that triggered the 2015 to 2017 bury your gays, another dead lesbian trope. And then going way back when CW was WB and UPN separately.
Yep.
Buffy, the Vampire Slayer, they introduced Willow and Tara, and then they killed Tara, which another dead lesbian. Like,
and then Willow went evil, right?
Yeah, and like that came out when I was figuring out my sexuality, and I didn't know about tropes or anything, so I was like heartbroken. Like, wow, I finally have something on television, and then it's dead. It's like, oh. And then, we've come a long way since then as far as quantity. So I have a lot more to choose from.
That's the point. The CW, they are giving a lot of quantity, but no quality. They even erased Jughead's asexuality because they wanted him to have sexy times with Betty.
Yeah, we talked about that last episode too. And fans were like, oh, Jughead can't be ace. He's too attractive. Which, whoa.
First of all, Sprout twins are not attractive. So that opinion is not valid.
Don't leave them boys alone. No, but I'm like, they were just so hyped for him to have sex with Betty, who's kind of his sister-ish, steps downstairs. I don't know, but I will say it's CW has always done this, and I remember back in Gossip Girl days when they're like, oh, you guys don't have any black characters, and they're like, here's one, and then she's just it's a cookie cutter. Where I'm like, when you can take a person of color. I was listening to this thing. Her name is Jaleesa, and I'm blanking on her last name, but she's a comedian. She's in a wheelchair. She has this live show called Rolling with the Homies, and she said she went into an audition room once. And it was her, and then she saw like a 60-year-old man in a wheelchair, and then she saw like an 8-year-old boy in a wheelchair. And she was like, who is this part for? She was like, did they just want someone in a wheelchair? Like, they didn't care about, they didn't have anyone more specific in mind. And I feel like that's what happens with the CW, where they're like, diversity, here you go. And then it's just a cookie cutter image of whatever, their like white, pretty teen that they wanted to be at that point.
Yeah.
The
and
last
that goes back
CW
to
show, the
Mhm.
last CW show I want to talk about is Roswell, New Mexico.
Now
I
I
have
don't
written.
watch this one, but I know you have. So I'm excited.
The showrunner knows about my articles.
Oh yeah.
He called me
Another
out.
That was a
Met
fun one to
you.
be in charge of our Twitter account during. It's really fun on my end because I'm like, oh, we have a lot of mentions all of a sudden. Who did what?
It's like row.
She called the Geekiary out,
Oh,
and oh wow, it was a mess. But yeah, the Roswell, New Mexico ends up going to the trope that Angel mentioned about if it moves, you get with it when it comes to bisexuals. So
mhm.
in the same show, we have one bisexual person who is an alien, surprise,
Discounted.
who is an actual alien, and he ends up having a romance with a gay man, and then he also ends up having a romance with a woman of color, who is just like this weird one night stand, and that reminded me of that entire Derek getting on with that. What's her name? Who was
Brayden.
Braden? Like you are
Mhm.
using a woman of color just to cause drama and as a bed warmer because you want this drama with the bisexual guy, and
Well,
it
it's
was
like
bad.
you don't want anyone to be able to say anything about it because then you could be like, well, she's a woman of color. I'm giving her a role, don't you? Isn't that good? And you're like, but you're doing it at the expense of her and this character. So thanks.
So
Like,
bad, and then the showrunner ended up saying that no, this article is mean. I have like consulted with queer people when I write my shows, and I was like, I didn't write this, but in my head I was like, you know what, girl, you're straight. Jeff Davis, an openly queer man, ended up messing up. So
Well,
yeah,
and that's something about it is that whatever you write is not going to hit for everybody. Not everybody is going to get it in that way. But when you go to the extent of saying you're not watching this the right way, or you're watching it for the wrong reasons, or even worse, where you're like, I consulted queer people, so
yeah,
therefore
yeah.
it should work for you.
That's the line I
It's
didn't
like
like. Yeah,
that's
he
not,
literally said that. He
yeah.
literally tweeted about that, and I was like, "Ooh, that doesn't make you look good."
It doesn't. And I'm like, this is where I just need you to take the L. Just take the L, swallow it down, and be like, you know what? My bad. I'm sorry that didn't hit for you. I did talk to other gay people, so it wasn't like I was coming out of, nowhere. But if it didn't reach you in the way that I wanted to, that's on me. Bam. It's such a simple thing to do, and people get so caught up in being unable to do it. It's very interesting.
So that CW, which was a perfect example of quantity but no quality per se.
Yes.
Then, when it comes to Fox, Ryan Murphy's new show, that's titled 911 Lone Star, has cast a POC trans actor, and it will premiere sometime in January 2020. So I'll be keeping an eye on that.
I will say, so we have a lot of, we kind of get into the Ryan Murphy of it all. Now, Ryan Murphy is actually kind of a perfect example of what I want to see. He cast all the gays in all the roles. You know what I mean? And so I feel, because he does have some messy characters and they do some messy nonsense.
Glee.
And
When
let's
he started out with Glee,
American Horror Glee and American Horror Story, both ridiculous. But I feel that he does so much representation that I can afford him that nonsense because it's like I know where you're coming from. I know you're doing this on an entertainment level and not necessarily like a social, here is a message from me to you kind of level. And
trying
so
to get brownie points that other showrunners want to get.
exactly. And I don't think he does that. I think that he it's like on 911, Brian Safi, he plays the dispatch. I don't know if he's ever been like I'm gay or I'm straight on this role, but it's like his sexuality is inconsequential. He's got to dispatch people to save lives and he's got to run the center and that's what it's about. I feel like Ryan Murphy tries. Even when he had that show, I'm so mad at, was it called Normal? It
The
had
new normal.
Justin,
New
yes,
normal.
Justin Bartha and Andrew.
Yeah.
Yes, you guys know what
The
I'm talking
singer. Yeah, he's a comedian.
people hated that show, and I loved it because I was like,
enjoyed it so much.
I loved it. it was so good. But I was like, I understand what he was trying to do because he made it a point to make himself known. Even while he was doing Glee, he was like, this is my point of view. When you're watching me, you're not watching every gay director. You're watching Ryan Murphy.
Ryan Murphy,
And we know what to expect from him from now. And so I wish that more people would kind of get into that. For a long time, there was this little bit of the stigma, and we kind of see it, unfortunately, like in the Bryan Singers of it all, where it's like, don't come out, don't give your status. Come to me, I'll help you. I'll give you roles. And, you'll have to play a straight guy, but don't worry about that. I'm going to make you a star. I'm going to make you big. And then it's like, all that seeks to do is hide that experience from someone and really kind of put them in an unfavorable position. So I like him.
Back to broad. Yeah. Then we have NBC Brooklyn Nine-Nine. You all need to check it out if you guys don't watch it. It's amazing. Fun show, amazing queer rep, diverse cast. Watch it. Will and Grace, I mean, it's great. It's messy, but it's a part of history. You can't really ignore it.
That's the interesting. So that's kind of, and maybe that's the answer to kind of how to meld the past and the future. I think that Will and Grace has earned their place to be messy. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, Will and Grace put up with a lot of mess while it was airing, when it went off the air, when it came back. But then you have a show like Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I'll never forget Stephanie Beatrice. She tells a story about how she went into the audition room and saw Melissa Fumero and was like, oh, I'm not getting this. Like, oh, never mind, let me go home. And they were like, no, we want, we want this. We want. And she was like, two Latinas on the same show? What? And I used to complain about that all the time, where I'd be like, name me a show that's not a quote unquote black show that has two black women in it that like aren't related, or whatever, aren't mother and daughter. And so, Brooklyn Nine-Nine is just above and beyond. They do so well, and they're so thoughtful, and I think that's what makes it so great.
Then Stephanie, you want to talk about Lexa? Oh, you have talked about
I kind of already did. We went over the CW. Sorry, my notes are a little out of order, but yes. Basically coming CW, stop doing it.
Stop it.
Well, it's another fake way of claiming representation when you just don't have the chops to back it up. When you're like, oh, she's bisexual. Oh, but her girlfriend died and she's never going to love again. Oh, well, I guess I got to put her with this hot guy. You're just like, what? Like, aren't you guys happy for me? I'm like, no.
But let's transition into cable, because cable is a whole other beast. A lot more freedom. But
both, if you guys don't watch it, it's that's the point. Like, when it comes to trans representation, it has increased in 2019, but it's basically one show that has all of it.
That's why I was very happy to hear about Ryan Murphy's other show, especially because it was a trans male, and we don't see trans male as much as we do trans female either. So that's very interesting.
Okay. Then Schitt's Creek. You all need to watch it. Oh,
so good.
It's perfect pansexual representation, bisexual. Like, it's fun, it's comedic, but it doesn't necessarily make fun of queer representation. And that's what I'm a fan of.
Well, it has fun with it, but it doesn't make fun of it. It's not the butt of the joke. It's part of, and I mean, I won't, like, there are no gay jokes, quote unquote, but you'll see, like, David will get really fussy with something, and it's more about like his personality than it is like an overall sexuality thing.
And then coming to BBC America, a bit of controversy, Killing Eve.
Yes.
Ooh.
Killing Eve. So,
I'm gonna say yes. Okay, go ahead. Yes.
So, basically, I was really excited to tune into this show because people said it's like Hannibal, but with women. Like, there's the cop and the criminal, and and I watched season 1 and loved it. But before I got to the next season, some stuff started coming out in the media, things that the actors were saying. So, I have a quote here from the Gay Times. The Gay Times reported that Sandra Oh was quick to dismiss a possible romance between Eve and Villanelle, and maintained that the storyline was not a focus or a message that Killing Eve was built around. You guys are tricky because you want to make it into something, but it just isn't, she continued. O's sentiments felt like a significant deviation from the narrative that the show had been pushing. So I didn't watch season 2
I haven't
because
seen
of that.
season 2 either.
I
That
watched it.
turned me off.
I will
I watched
watch it. Yeah.
Because
Without
Sandra.
spoilers.
Okay, yeah, okay. So I won't give any spoilers, but Sandra's O remarks, that quote was for the possible relationship between her, like Eve and Villanelle.
Mhm.
She wasn't talking about them actually not being queer. Because Villanelle is a bisexual character, that's canon, it's obvious. And in season 2, I'm just going to say this, it's a bit of a spoiler. So, oh, come on.
And it's been on a while, so
Yeah.
go ahead.
Okay, so in season 2, Villanelle actually tells Eve that she loves her. She tries to kiss her.
Oh, she did that in season 1, I thought.
Yeah, she does it again in season 2.
Okay.
She literally tries to kiss her, and you can see Eve wanting to kiss her as well. But there's just so much messed up stuff between these two that she backs away. So
And so-
Sandra, yeah, so I think that the fandom ended up equating two queer characters not getting together as queer baiting.
I think that this is a situation where the wording, there's so many, dear Hollywood, if you're watching this, please hire me as a publicist.
Yeah.
Let me craft these statements for you, because it's always just one or two words where it's like, oh, you just want to. I understand from Sandra's point of view. She's like, Eve's a murderer, or Villanelle's a murderer.
Right.
Eve is going through some stuff, and but she's married. She has a husband that she loves. She's just kind of obsessed with the notion of Villanelle, that kind of thing. And so, while there is a queerness to that, and there can definitely have that representation, ultimately you don't really want to ship these two because it's just aching for a bad ending, for an unhappy. They're not going to get a bed and breakfast in Maine and that kind of thing. Angel's like, well, maybe you never know.
Sometimes it's fun to ship problematic things.
Definitely.
Hanagram is an OTP of mine, and so that's kind of why I tuned into this show, because I was hoping for the same kind of dynamic where it's not going to be happy, and that is a trope. This hit several tropes. The psycho lesbian trope, and possibly burying your gays because it's not going to be happy. And Hannibal, spoiler, they fall off a cliff, and it's good to get away from the tropes, and if there's more representation, we'll get away from the tropes, but sometimes it's fun to get messy, and I was kind of drawn to this specifically because of the potential for messiness.
See, I wish that she would have spoken more to that, and because she said you guys are tricky because you want to make it into something, and it's like you're speaking from a very sympathetic, protagonist character. She's like, you don't want this for Eve. Eve is a nice person, and it's like, no, but we want the messy, we want that fun. That's a big part of this, is how flippant Villanelle is, and you just kind of want to see her get into some craziness. So from that angle, then it's like, oh yeah, go ahead, make all the fan art, who cares? But I think she was saying this just from a different point of view, and I think it probably did come off as queer baiting, but I don't think that was the intention, because I think that they really just weren't expecting, the fluff fics are coming. No matter how crazy the fluff fics are coming. But I mean, that's just part of it. And I think understanding how their audience is ingesting their content now, because it used to be that shows were one-to-one. I show you a boy and his dog on the screen, in your head is a boy and his dog. Now, with the way that fandom grows, the way what's on the screen is just content for our content. It's just like there was a picture of Glenn holding a baby for Superman, and him and Lois, and someone was like, oh, I love the way they spaced this, so I can just cut out Lois and put it
It's true.
And I'm okay, but also I get it.
Where it wants to go.
Exactly. So I think showrunners aren't prepared to deal with the idea of being they're kind of headcanon creators now, you know.
Death of the author, and it's becoming a lot more prevalent now with like the rise of internet fandom culture.
Yes.
Because before there was a distance, and now there's not a distance. We're here, we're taking your property, we're writing on AO3, we're making sexy fan art, and you can't stop it unless you want to like sue AO3, which has a whole herd of lawyers ready to fight back against you. So good
every time they have a fundraiser, I'm like, donate, do what you guys need to do.
Like they're protecting us.
So moving forward, on Sundance, we have Disclose.
Oh, wait, 1 second. I'm so sorry, Farid. Can you go back to Boomerang?
Sure.
Oh, I didn't?
I don't think we talked about it.
Oh yeah, I skipped Boomerang.
Yeah.
Okay, so BET, Boomerang, I do reviews for it on the Geekiary. Make sure to check it out. It's by Lena Waite, who is an openly lesbian showrunner, writer. She's
Queen
amazing.
And Slim.
And this is, I'm going to watch it. I'm waiting for it to show here. So basically, it's a continuation of an old Eddie Murphy and Halle Berry movie by the same name. And it focuses on the next generation, their kids. And they have a bisexual character by the name Ari. He's not a main character. He's basically a supporting character. But the way he's written, even in a supporting role, like that's why it's important. Like having queer voices in the writer's room or the development process, it's important. Like, yes, it can get messy as far as Jeff Davis is concerned. But having more queer voices and Lena Waite, I think you all need to like read my reviews for the show on the website.
You got a good shout out from Queen Sugar, the main lady. Why am I blanking? What's her name? The creator.
Lena Waite?
No, not Lena. The other Wrinkle in Time. What's her name?
Eva DuVernay.
Yes, thank you. Didn't you get like a shout out from her? Like she liked your tweet. I was very excited. Maybe you should. No, I'll find it. Okay, never mind.
For sure.
Because Lena Waite ended up retweeting one of the reviews that I did.
Yeah.
People know about the Geekiary, you all. People know about the Geekiary. They don't always talk about it publicly, but a whole lot of people know about it.
Never forget that the Teen Wolf press room, poor Jamie had to deal with Jeff Davis going, "Tell Farid I said hello."
So funny. That was the best thing ever. Are we also, because I want to add one, so I want to add a Black Lady sketch show to this. That one has, now I don't know, I know that there are a couple in the main cast who identify as queer themselves. I don't know the breakdown of that, so I apologize, but they have tons of guest stars, and Lena Waithe has been on it along with Lorraine Cox and just all these queer identifying characters. And in every sketch, not only do they have, like the women, they play male characters, but then they also play queer characters as well. And it's seamless. It's just like there was literally one episode that was taking place in the club. And actually, now that you say this might have been a part of it. There was a lesbian couple. One was more kind of, butch, and the other one was a little more femme, and they were just kind of dancing and everything. And then an alien comes in and starts like biting her dance moves. And she's like, "Is he biting my dance moves?" That kind of thing. And I was like, that would be funny if that was kind of a little nod to the whole like lesbians as aliens thing. Yeah. But it's amazing representation. It's so funny. It's on HBO. Definitely check it out. There are some clips on YouTube too.
Okay, so coming to Sundance, we have Disclose. So if you guys are into queer representation where the main leads are deaf and they are actually played by actual deaf actors, you need to check it out. It's like 2 seasons have aired, and Niall DeMarco is in there. And fan art of Niall DeMarco has helped the Geekiary raise a couple of dollars. So
yeah. I love it.
Check it out. Also, Showtime, Shameless, messy, but I'm not mad at it because the entire show is messy. So I can't actually be mad about the entire thing.
It's actually a perfect example of problematic gays, because Galovich all day, every day. I don't care.
Season 10 with Ian and Mickey in the prison in the same cell.
Oh, when I tell you, hearts aligned that day. And it was so funny because it's like, this dude just got thrown into jail and is in a maximum security block with his lover. So you two gay dudes in jail are just like, but we're just like, yes, Mickey, forever. So good.
Then AMC's The Walking Dead. No place for more than 2 queers in that show.
Yikes.
Queer gays everywhere. It's like every
Everywhere.
season they kill a queer character, and I haven't watched it since they killed Glenn. He's not a queer character, but he was my favorite. So I don't know. I'm assuming they've continued down this path since then.
Oh, they did. Tune in for our Bitching Dead webcast.
Yes, it's another webcast on this same channel. I pimped it in the last episode as well because we briefly talked about Daryl Dixon's potential asexuality and how upsetting it was when they knocked that out and decided not to do it. So again, if you want to see more of more people on this station complaining about The Walking Dead, check out the Bitching Dead because it's this constantly.
Sexuality, correct? The resistance to it is so funny to me because it's like, on one hand, we don't want people having sex, or we want them having all of the sex, or we don't want them having sex until they don't want to have sex, and then we definitely want them to have sex. It's just like, just pick one, pick a rule. What are we doing?
Oh,
Angel, Doctor Who.
I have a few examples. So going back to BBC, I guess mine are out of order. I apologize. Doctor Who is really bad with representation, though they've tried. But they bury the gays all the time, except for Jack Harkness, which ironically cannot be killed. So he's like the Teflon gay character, technically.
Teflon gays, I love it.
But other than that, like Bill was the first gay companion, well, confirmed, I guess, gay, Jack's Omni, but and she was turned into a Cyberman, but apparently then she was brought back. I had stopped watching at that point, so I don't know how that happened. But and then there was Heather, who was romantically interested in Bill. Also, the psycho lesbian trope, because burying your gays was not enough, so let's add another negative trope. And then there was another character, a security guard, that was on screen for 28 seconds, and in that 28 seconds, he mentioned he had a boyfriend and then was killed.
He shouldn't have mentioned it.
I don't even know the exact.
Like, I'm straight. Psych.
No, I'm straight. Don't kill me. And then discount lesbians too. Madame Vastra, an alien lesbian, but her wife Jenny is a human. So I guess it's 50% trope, and they're actually a pretty good couple. Like, I really liked it when I was watching the show, despite the trope of her being an alien. I thought it was actually quality, which is rare on this show.
Then we have The Magicians.
No, can we skip this one?
I'm just going to say that I wrote an article about it. You guys can read it.
Okay.
I had also stopped watching this show at this point, so I don't know, because I hate the barrier gaze trope, but your article seemed to say that it was done well. And since I haven't watched it, I will defer to. And
I want to catch up, and I am definitely going to catch up on The Magicians. But I was like, I'm excited to read that article.
Yeah, because I mean, my opinion is just crankiness about a trope being used, and so without context, maybe it's not as bad as I expect it to be. We'll link to that article.
I don't watch it.
Battlestar Galactica is old, but going back in time to problems a decade ago, and Battlestar Galactica is about to get a reboot, but it's apparently not really a reboot. It's going to be a new story in the new generation, but I hope they correct the issues, because the main Battlestar Galactica did not have any on-screen queer representation.
I thought he was gay.
In the online episodes, he was. In the online episodes, they talked about it. And then in one of the spin-off shows, the movie Pegasus, Admiral Kane was a lesbian.
Right.
But that was a spin-off movie, and then Gata was gay in the spin-off online content. So the reason I want to bring this one up is because, even though it's old, it's not part of the quality versus quantity debate today.
I'm old.
You're old. it doesn't count into the statistics now. It's still important because they're trying to bring it back and they have a second chance to
Right.
have some actual representation this time around. So please.
That is one thing about these reboots is we haven't gotten to streaming yet. Do you have well, I was about to say Clarissa. Do you have Sabrina on this list?
Oh, Netflix? Oh, I don't touch it. I don't.
Okay, we will talk about Sabrina when we get
I
there.
don't touch
Okay.
Sabrina. It's like a CW show but on streaming. And
It
I'm like,
really,
oh.
really
And it's
is.
related because it's the same universe as Riverdale, isn't it? Yeah. So
Speaking of which, because our whole thing is like, when are they going to put werewolves on Riverdale? You know
CW's
what
gonna
I
cut
mean?
us off from all the freebies that they send us. They're gonna watch this episode and be like, "No more DVDs for you."
Right. I love it. I love it. Did has anyone watched Nancy Drew?
I have not.
I watched it. I watched the first 2 episodes.
What are we thinking?
Basically, one of the characters is asexual, and I'm like,
Really?
but it's not canon. It's weirdly, it's like she's not basically asexual. She's waiting for another lesbian to come to town so that she can hook up with her.
Okay.
It's weird. So that's not asexual.
Yeah.
Like that's like you're waiting for someone better to come into your life.
Yeah. You're just being abstinent. What do they
Is
call
that
it?
on streaming? I
Incels.
don't even know. Is Nancy Drew on TV or streaming?
it's on
CBS
CW.
All Access, right? Oh, is it
Okay.
CW?
It's on CW. Nancy Drew is on CW. Stay away from CW.
Except for Black Lightning, apparently, and
yeah.
maybe this new Superman show. But we'll see.
Maybe the shows by Greg Berlanti. Maybe the shows from
Yeah.
Greg Berlanti. Watch those because Greg Berlanti is an openly gay man, so he knows how to handle queer representation as far as
He's done a very good job. Yeah, he's done a lot better. We were talking about this the other day about the gay showrunners who are like, you know, where's my check? Versus the ones who are like, I would like to actually affect change. So I see Greg as one of the ones who actually wants to affect change.
If you want good, comparatively good queer representation on CW, watch the DC comic TV shows on there, Arrowverse shows. Now, streaming, the biggest culprit. Streaming, y'all. Streaming has 109 LGBTQ plus characters as regulars, and as far as my opinion goes, all of them can go.
Yeah.
Let's start going through the list.
So I'm going to quickly go through them. Tales of the City. It's basically a continuation of a very old TV show that used
How
to
did
air.
they mess that up?
It was so bad. It ended up having openly queer actors playing openly queer characters. Ellen Page was on there. Bob the drag queen was in there.
Laura Linney, everybody.
Laura Linney I mean, come on, they messed it up big time. I'm not even sure if it's coming back. No one really liked it.
Yeah. Well,
no one really
kind of
liked it.
did the Looking thing, because Looking was kind of a response to Queer as Folk, where they're like, yes, you know, the party gays are out there, but we have some normal gays too. But then it was like only normal gays, and it's just like, come on, guys.
On Queer as Folk, they had a show within a show that was all about that. It was called Gay as Blazes, and it was just a bunch of really boring gay characters. And like they hated it. Like when it would come on in the bar, they would be like, boo, and like turn it off.
Exactly. And that's what it's like. There's a difference between, you know, and I understand the need, but you can't just go to the other side of the spectrum. You really have to kind of bring that show to the middle and find that kind of happy ground.
Also,
So
these are good examples for streaming shows and other networks to know that skin can only take you so far.
yeah.
Like Looking had a lot of sex scenes. Tales of the City has a lot of nudity, but if you don't pair it up with an interesting story, no one is going to watch it.
Well, and again, it's just, oddly enough, we're not to the point where I guess gay isn't a gimmick. And so you have to give us something real under. I hate to even say it, because I don't want to imply that, you know, being gay is not real or whatever, or like not like a real thing. But right now, that's kind of the pull in. That's the thing that's kind of drawing us to this. So it's like, show us different experiences within that culture. And I think what they kind of relied on with with Tales of the City was, we're going to distract you, be tolerant, distraction, look over here, be nice to women, distraction, that kind of thing. And so it never focused. And I
Yeah.
think people just were like, you know what, I don't need this soapbox. I don't need this today.
And then Queer Eye, it's very controversial because Queer Eye is basically custom made for a straight audience. So people aren't really happy about the representation with, you can be gay, but gays are only okay if you are the feminine type of gay.
I mean,
That's interesting.
To an extent, I disagree with that, but of course it's for gay men and then a non-binary person. So we got non-binary now. And actually, I think Anthony doesn't necessarily identify as gay, but I'm not sure.
Oh, he's gay. He's just
Well, he's always been like,
he's playing
I don't know,
like Ricky Martin used to play because he has a female fandom.
My only issue with Queer Eye is Kuramo, and that issue came up very, very recently. And
we do not talk about Kuramo.
Yeah, so I watched the recent
talk about
season.
that air a little bit later, but I do have a question. So I watched old school Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, and I was wondering if some of the controversy had to do with, maybe they kind of see it as pandering, if that ever came up, where it's like, oh, like us, we're doing something nice for you, be nice to gay people now, that kind of thing. The feminine masculine argument is just always going to be an argument as long as misogyny exists, as long as people just don't let people live. We're rewatching Veronica Mars for this other podcast I'm doing, and there was one of the teachers, and he was like, not every guy who is well dressed and clean and smells nice is gay. Sometimes they're just Asian. And I was like, there's so many. It was so funny, but I was just like, okay, but that was 15 years ago. Why do we still have that same? But I don't know. I just think that's one of those things. But yeah, I think overall Queer Eye has done a lot in terms of just opening people's eyes. I don't know if it's helping in turning that gaze into something progressive, Yeah.
And also, dear white people, I love this show.
But it's messy.
It's messy, but I love this show.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And also Trinkets, it stars that actress who played teenage Negasonic Warhead in Deadpool, the openly queer actress. She's the lead in Trinkets, but basically it's about women who are thieves. So you have a lesbian who's not necessarily a good person, so make of it what you want as far as representation goes. Then Orange is the New Black.
Well, no, wait, I got a comment. So, Orange is the New Black, House of Cards, and then like the politician is all, dot. And I mean, that's all you can say.
Yeah, it's queer representation, but
it's good representation. The problem is that Piper is so terrible that it just it loses focus. You're like, okay, great queer representation, but I don't see it because this character is nonsense.
Another problem.
Yeah.
Another problem
played by Kevin Spacey. What I know
with Orange is the New Black is that even though they have a really wide, broad cast, it started to pick up on all those tropes. Started killing characters, burying the gays. Started having the psycho lesbians. Started having. I feel like there's a lot more. Like, they abused the trans woman character, didn't they? Like, she went through abuse, and like, I don't know what trope that falls under, but I feel like, the gangst, basically.
Yes, the gangst.
And like, there's a lot of characters, so not all of them hit those tropes, but the fact that they just started passing out tropes to characters, like, you're gonna be gangst, you're gonna die, you're gonna it's like, oh god, like, you are doing a good thing. Let's not. Promiscuous bisexual cheats on her fiance, like. God.
Yeah, it's like, it's weird. If you want to watch it, you can watch it, but don't really expect a lot from it. And House of Cards, messy again with Kevin Spacey being a bisexual lead character.
No, he's
Yeah.
kicked out of our community. He's not welcome to us.
Yeah,
I love Bruce
yeah, we don't need
Wayne.
Kevin Spacey.
We don't want him. Thank you. Oh,
And then
one thing about that, Billy on the Street. He has a TV show, and he recently
it's
did
on
an
Netflix
episode with Chris Evans,
Billy Eichner, yeah.
where he has a petition that says, "Sign this petition to kick out Kevin Spacey from the gay community, but add Chris Evans."
yeah, I watched it.
People find it.
And then Voltron, if you guys go to the Geekiary, we have a whole lot of articles about Voltron.
It's a whole other podcast, man.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Voltron.
And then She-Ra is being targeted for queer baiting.
Interesting. I've heard mostly good things about She-Ra, but
it's being targeted for queer baiting. And also to your trope point about discount lesbians or discount queers, they are introducing an asexual character, but surprise, it's an alien. It's a literal shape-shifting alien.
I don't
Also,
think
who
that
was watching
character
She-Ra?
included. Yeah, I don't think that ace character was included in the GLAAD report, because there was only one, and it was on BoJack Horseman, and that,
I think it's still going to be introduced in the new She-Ra season or something. You can Google it. It's like green. The design is very green.
Might
Is
have
she
been
animated?
fairly new.
Yeah, She-Ra is animated.
Okay.
She-Ra, the Princess of Power, animated show. Like, if you want to watch a queer animated show, watch Steven Universe, not She-Ra.
Yeah.
They are
Like-
also discount lesbians, though. But Steven Universe does have
still.
great representation.
Yeah, but
they do.
They're all
Yeah.
aliens, so.
Still.
So
The politician Ryan Murphy, I mean,
Again, Ryan Murphy. It's
first
like,
episode,
you
the
know
first
what you're gonna get.
They end up killing. Oh, I mean,
just watched I just listened to episode of Las Culturistas with Ben Platt, and he was talking about that, and he was like, he said, he's been playing high school characters all his life. He's finally getting to play someone a little bit older, and he was like, yeah, I like it because it's different than what you normally see for gay guys. And I'm like, kind of because it had to be. And then also, yeah, no, it's not. So yeah, that's
queer
one that
queer people killing each other is not new.
but season 2 is supposed to kind of have a completely different feel to it. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes.
That's another trope, murderous gays, which goes way back to silent cinema. Like,
I'm like, I can't blame them.
Like 1930s, 1940s. Why am I forgetting his name? He did Psycho. Like, he's legendary.
Perkins.
Yeah. So
I just watched Norman Bates.
yeah.
We were talking about the character.
The murderous gay trope, where if there's going to be a gay character, they're going to be the villain. Which there was a really funny tweet about this, where it's like Hollywood makes all the villains be coded as gay so that people understand that being gay is wrong. But instead, what you get is an entire generation of people who now not find villains interesting and sexy.
Exactly. That's hilarious.
You need to blame Disney movies too.
Oh man.
But yeah,
Sex Education.
That's movies. Now, Sex Education, cancel it.
Cancel it.
Right now. It's
How
the
dare they?
The worst trope to show in 2019, as far as my opinion goes. Like, a queer student is hooking up with their own bully. Like, no.
Well, and this also made me mad. I remember back in Glee days when Karofsky decided to come out and then was trying to like, we're like, no, what are you doing? Like, no, he gets to not. Let's not do this.
Kurt was like, no. And that was like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And in 2019, they have a actor of color, a queer actor of color, hooking up with a white bully. Because apparently, if someone is bullying you, they like you or something.
Like you. It's like it's the gay version of pulling pigtails. I'm like, it's really not at all.
It's bad. Cancel this show. And then House of Flowers, bisexual, promiscuous bisexual, who is basically hooking up with everyone. Cancel that show as well.
I don't know House of Flowers, but yeah, I think the oversexed bisexual is I would like to see like a bisexual is just like I'll date occasionally, like it's fine. There's
Yeah.
always just so many extremes where it's like it's again you have to prove that you're bisexual. Anna Paquin used to have this thing, and she was like, "Yeah, I marry a man, but I'm bisexual." Like that doesn't cancel out my
And
attraction.
also, Sticky, to your point, like I'm okay with bisexual women and guys like doing it with everyone basically, but
Mhm.
don't cheat.
Yeah, exactly,
Like, why are
exactly.
you cheating?
Right.
Like,
That's not a
at the
bisexual
same time,
trait. That's just being a
yeah.
jerk.
But they end up associating with the person being a bisexual, which I don't like.
Exactly.
And Elite, oof. You watched Elite?
Okay, now this is where we're going to disagree. I love Elite. I mean, I'll give this disclaimer. Elite is not meant to be anybody's lesson to
Yeah.
anything. It is hot.
That's why I just wrote,
You
oh,
can sometimes like your problematic stuff.
Elite,
Got my serial killer.
Elite is not trying to move any needle. Elite is not trying to give you any lesson. Elite is not trying to get any bonus or woke points. Elite is just trash.
Elite is so trash. Elite is the one show where the voiceover actively mismatches the subtitles. So I was like, nobody, unless you speak whatever they're speaking, you have no idea what's going on in the show. But yeah, the main relationship between they kind of had a throuple going, and one of the guys in the throuple was very into it. The other guy was just trying to get with the girl, and then the girl was like, I like everybody. And so it was a hot mess. But no, I would never point it to a like this is how thruples go.
And
No,
the
it's
murderer is
awful.
bisexual. And the murderer
Yes.
is bisexual.
Mhm.
Murderers bisexuals, y'all. And then we have Baby.
She's going through some things.
So, Baby, again, with the entire trope of hooking up with your bully. And that bully is actually asking other people to hit you and like hurt you, and you're still hooking up with them, which I mean, okay. Then we have Money Heist, which is a fun show, but again, it's a messy show. But yeah. Then, as far as good representation goes, I would recommend you all watch Selection Day. I wrote a review of
Okay.
it.
Yes.
It's basically like Indian representation from India, with little high school boys falling in love and trying to figure out their sexuality in
Aw.
a society where they aren't allowed. And it's fun. It's very fun. It's basically very focused on cricket. And if you're a fan of cricket, you'll enjoy it more. So I made a review of it if you guys want to check it out. And then Stranger Things ended up giving us Robin and Will. Robin, basically, in this
Yeah.
season.
I think
It
that's
was-
good.
it
So
was-
you might
it was
want to cancel
handled
that
very
stuff.
well. It was handled very well.
Yeah, I mean, you want to cancel a lot of stuff, but let's not cancel that one because I think it's genuinely good. My only issue is that in the 80s, it was not nearly as tolerated. So Robin coming
Right.
out as that way felt a little bit too out of place for the
It was
80s.
very 2019. Yeah.
Yeah. But Will, I thought was really interested because he's not out, but also it's ambiguous if he's gay or asexual. We could have another asexual character on our hands because all we know is that
Right.
he doesn't like girls, and that can mean a lot of things. So I really want both of those to go forward. I just wish Robin's was a little bit more realistic for the time period.
I will say, I also want to add there's a show called Imposters on Netflix. And it's just one of these shows where this guy gets bamboozled. So he hooks up with this woman has been going around and honeypotting all these people, marrying them, and then taking all their life savings. And so he meets up with a guy that
Gold,
she was
right,
married
gold.
to. And then, a woman that she was married to. And the woman through and through, she's like, I'm a lesbian. That's what it is. I'm not sleeping with either of you. Like that's not going to be a thing. And I love that they never like made it be like, oh, I have a connection to you and now I love you. No, she's like, no, I love her, and I can't stand y'all. And so that's a very good one in terms of representation. Plus it's a very fun show. And then Netflix had another one, and I just completely blanked on
Sabrina,
it. So,
you wanted to talk about Sabrina?
Sabrina, my God. So again, with Veronica Mars, there was a whole thing where they basically tricked this boy into taking these pictures with his girlfriend and then shop the girlfriend out and then shop this boy in and made it sound like he was writing him love letters and just all this stuff.
I watched it. Yeah.
So 15 years later, we get to Sabrina, and she cast a spell that makes the boy think that the guy is a hot girl. And so then they start making out, and then she records it. And I'm like, are we using gay as blackmail now? Is that what's hot in the streets in 2019? Yeah. What's going on? So I thought it was so irresponsible. And it's just like, again, they have so many ways that they can do things. Because I know in their head, they're like, oh, we're exposing prejudices. But I'm like, but you're causing the prejudice. You know, like, why are you doing this? So yeah, I that's one that I'm like, cancel it, honestly.
Yeah. I watched the first season, and that's another one where I stopped watching. Not necessarily because I hated it, but because there was better stuff that came out at the same time.
Exactly.
And also, did you guys watch Daybreak on Netflix?
I've heard about it. I know one of the writers, and it's supposed to be very great. So we'll see.
I did a review of it if you guys want to check it out. As far as queer representation goes, again, with an entire hooking a queer character with another queer who is basically a murderer.
That's unfortunate.
What is up with Netflix and these problematic shows? Apparently, Netflix has this computer algorithm that tells them which shows they need to produce.
Quality, quantity.
So I guess the computer is homophobic or something?
Well, the problem is that people are watching, and you have this dichotomy, especially in Hollywood, of they're telling me that this is what people are watching, so that's what I'm going to write. But they're not understanding why people are watching that. And so you haven't found that good balance yet between let me give you a message while I entertain you at the same time. And I think that that's kind of the thing that people are rushing. Right now, we're rushing to shock because there's so much content that you have to be that one piece of content that's different enough, but they're not making it nuanced. It's just like, bam, here's some in your face. Now watch the rest of this. We're just like, oh, no, thank you.
Hulu, watch Harlots. Lesbian representation back in the 80s or 70s. It's a bit unrealistic, but it's so much fun.
It's actually a lot better. There was a movie that just came out. It was just nominated for an Oscar, The Favorite. And it's kind of in that same kind of time thing where it's like, it was never talked about, but it was definitely a thing. And so I think that they do an okay job with that. There's a new show on Apple TV called Dickinson. It's about Emily Dickinson.
Yeah.
And she's not only a female character, but a queer character. The show itself is a little bit wonky, but her representation inside of it is very good.
I've heard good things about it. Bravest Night on Hulu, animated show. The little girl has 2 queer dads. Watch it.
Okay.
As well. Yeah, Jamie, one of our editors and contributors, Jamie, ended up doing a review for it.
Oh, fun!
Awesome. Yeah.
All right.
And a lot of diversity, there's like people of color in there and everything. And then CBS All Access Star Trek Discovery. The damage control they tried to do.
So I was all about this. I was super excited. I was reviewing it weekly, and then they buried a gay. And not just that, but they had advertised these 2 characters as the first protagonists of a show, like lead characters that are a same-sex married couple. And then halfway through the first season, they killed them. And immediately after they killed them, they released a bunch of interviews saying, stick around, it's not what you think, kind of a thing, like, because they knew we were upset. But I stopped. I canceled my CBS All Access subscription because that was the only reason I had it. And I have not returned. Apparently, they brought it back, but
it's still messy because apparently
too late.
The kid they ended up killing doesn't even remember his past life.
Oh man, that's like they did a similar thing in Babylon 5, where they had a lesbian couple, but they were really subtle about it. Like you just see them waking up in bed together, and they never really say they're a couple. It's like interesting.
Oh, they're just really good friends.
They're great friends. But
We'll say-
they mind wiped one of them, which is
Yeah.
essentially killing him. Like, so I'm not subscribed to CBS All Access.
And then DC Universe, Doom Patrol. It's messy. The queer character is being played by Matt Bomer, but it's kind of okay. But because the entire show is wacky, but at least the queer character is one of the main characters, so he gets a lot of screen time.
Matt Bomer has been making some choices, and I don't know about all of them, but God bless.
No, come on. Give him.
He's been making some choices. That's all I'm gonna say. This goes back a little bit, but on Fox, this is the strange recommendation of the night. The Orville. Seth MacFarlane show on Fox has legit queer representation. Yes, they're aliens, but they're like gay within their species, and they're like, this is how it is. So I don't know why y'all are tripping. And I just thought about that when you were talking about Star Trek. I was like, they had a legit couple with like marriage problems and just like couple stuff, and I was like, that was really good representation. Wow. So well done, Seth MacFarlane.
Okay, so DC Universe, Young Justice, they ended up following the comic book canon with Aqualad, and they showed him being openly bisexual.
Oh, okay.
So that was good. And also, apparently, one of the characters is asexual.
Really?
Yeah, but again, she's, I think, dead and an alien. So, like, she is an undead kind of...
She's like, I'm all the tropes, but I'm going to make it work. I'll make it work.
She's also a woman of color. Apparently, she's Middle Eastern. She's also dead, but not dead.
So the chances of her dying are very high at this point. Like,
No,
if you get that many check boxes.
Technically, she can't die. She's like a Teflon queer.
Teflon gay. I love that term so much.
That's how it is on Winona. They're Teflon gays. They get shot and they're not dead.
Right. Winona. You guys need to watch Winona.
Winona, yeah, I've heard good things about that too.
And then DC Universe has the upcoming Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy show.
Please do it well. Please do it well. Please.
I'm going to keep an eye on it. I'm going to keep an eye on it. I think it's going to release this month, in a week or something.
What are they thinking about casting? Who's in it?
It's an animated show.
Oh, it's what?
Yeah, it's an animated show, so that's why I think they can do a lot with an animated show. As far as
because animated can go both ways. You got
R-rated animated show.
What?
Animated show.
Oh, this has the potential. Okay, we'll stick a pin in it. Stick a pin in it.
He's using the F word left and right. Poison Ivy is in there. It reminded me of Shameless because Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn are in the same cell, the same prison cell.
Nice. I love it.
So basically, they're prison lesbians. Yeah.
Hey, we'll get there somehow.
Also, Disney streaming just launched, and their first original show was High School Musical, the series.
Mm-hmm.
And
I refuse.
They have an openly gay character who's of Latin descent, and but then again, he's your stereotypical kind of theater gay, which is kind of like a safe choice for straight audiences. So but then again, the trailer teased a romance for him, so I'll be keeping an eye about how that romance works. And how far they go, and if the screen time they have is equal to the screen time that straight romances have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then moving on to Amazon, watch Made in Heaven, very good Indian rep. While Selection Day was high school students, Made in Heaven is grown-ups, very messy grown-ups with very messy backstories. I did an entire review of it for the Geekiary. Watch it. And now, Good Omens.
Good Omens. That's one that we talk about a lot on the Geekiary. In fact, we have an entire article about the radical non-binary representation of the show. It may not officially count because it's not explicit on screen. However, Neil Gaiman has confirmed that it's a love story, and he has confirmed that they are not human males, and a lot of the stuff that fans have picked up on, like the "you move too fast for me" Crowley and stuff like that, is it's meant to be read romantically, so it may not be officially explicit on screen, but it's so close that people have adopted it as official representation.
Well, have you read the book?
I did. It's been my favorite book for like a decade.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, I got the audiobook and like the full cast recording because I have ADD and can't pay attention to anything. But yeah, I thought that it came through in such a good way where it wasn't too understated. It was very prominent, but it also wasn't, I don't want to say pushy, but it was just there. It's just kind of like, yeah, they definitely are flirting, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
For some shows, you really, really need to be very ignorant of queer people to not pick up
Right.
on queer representation.
It's willfully so. Yeah.
That entire thing. No, they aren't queer. These are very close brothers or very close.
They're
friends.
roommates.
No,
And there's
years.
deleted scenes
These two are
where
banging each other.
Crowley's like bringing him chocolates and stuff, like, and flowers, like, to celebrate the opening of his shop, and that got cut. But like, there are very romantic scenes. But there are some possible tropes that it could fit. The discount lesbian kind of thing, but also when it comes to gender, these are from TV tropes. Supernaturally validated trans person effectively exists as a counter to the idea that a trans person is a real member of gender, although it can also come across as transphobic when handled poorly. Another possible trope is the otherworldly and sexually ambiguous. These characters can be powerful escapist characters for trans, intersex, and gender nonconforming people, but can also carry the implication of not fitting into a binary gender, makes you not quite a real human being. However, we do have 2 non-binary writers on the website, and they've been writing a lot about Good Omens, and they adore the show. And there's a lot of non-binary people that have related very heavily to these characters. So while there is potential for these tropes to apply, I
think they subvert them pretty well so far. Yeah.
They are effectively non-binary and pansexual or demisexual.
And also, for those of you wondering, Neil knows about the Geekiary.
Yes. He linked to one of the articles I wrote about Good Omens.
Neil Gaiman, fun times. That was very exciting.
He said my article was amusing. And that can be sassy, but at the same time, he's amused me for years with his writing. So the fact that I amused him in return, I'm very flattered.
Aw, that's fun.
Lena Waite ended up telling me that she sent my review to the writer's room.
Oh.
Because I ended up listing everything I wanted to see in the second season of Boomerang.
Okay.
So Lena, I'll be, yeah.
He's like, send me a check. Put my name on the byline, inspired by.
I'm just waiting to see if she does what she said. Like, she's like, I'm going to send these as suggestions to the writer's room. Like, she might send them, but let's see what happens.
So, to the writers paying attention to us, thank you.
Yes. Amazon it's been doing okay in terms of kind of overall representation. They've been trying to do a little more international things, which is interesting. But sometimes with those international things, you either get a lot of queer content or none at all. And so it'll be interesting to see how that kind of builds, in the coming years.
Yeah. Do we have any other points we want to cover?
Talking about Amazon, they also and their international thing. Another Indian show they have is called Gangs of Wasipur or something, and they have a trans character in there, but that trans character is played by a straight female actress. So, but then again, I can't really fault them because it's like it's an Indian cast, so they aren't really there yet. But
okay, yeah,
it's a show from India. So I mean, watch Made in Heaven.
They're trying.
Yeah, Made in Heaven is good. It's very, very good as far as queer representation goes. But that other show that I just mentioned, I'm not necessarily going near it just yet. So I'm waiting for the second or the third season to come out and see where everything's heading.
Mm-hmm. On Netflix over the summer there was a show called Another Life, and it had Starbuck, Katie. I'm so sorry, I forget name.
Yeah.
Thank you, Katie Sackhoff, and Justin Chatwin. Which who did that casting? Like the lack of chemistry. But I will say they had someone on there who I thought was a trans character, but I looked them up, and it turns out to be, I believe they're non-binary. It's called J.R. Tinaco, Tinaco. I might be pronouncing that incorrectly, but it'll be. I can't remember if they killed them off though. But I think in the show,
Most likely they ended up killing him off.
Right on the show. I think that she had female her pronouns because they did put her in a relationship with a male crew member, and they never discussed is anyone in here queer or are you trans or anything like that. But I don't. Oh, okay, non-binary. So yeah, they're non-binary. It doesn't say much about it on the show because it says that the character is non-binary, but they went by she, her. So I'm not sure exactly.
Some non-binary people do use binary pronouns.
Yeah,
it depends on the person.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good to know. But that'll be interesting to see if they have a place in the second season and how that unfolds. So we'll see.
All right. Well, I am going to wrap this up because we do have another episode to record. And so thank you guys both for being on this. Your contributions were amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for everyone who tuned in to the Queer Geek Cast. We're run off of donations by viewers like you. So please like, subscribe, and follow on all our social media accounts. We're the Geekiary everywhere. That's TheGeekiary on Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook,
Patreon.
Yeah, Patreon. So help support the site. Give us a follow, like, etc., and donate to Patreon. Thank you.